Hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching Namaste World, your daily window into the biggest stories shaping India and the world. We begin in South America. With Maduro captured, Washington focus shifts to Venezuela's vast oil reserves, exposing how energy power now drives geopolitics. In South Asia, Pakistan test fires Taimoor air-launched cruise missile, projecting precision strike ambitions as regional missile competition intensifies. India and Bangladesh reopen the fraught Ganga Water Pact as dry season measurements revive deep mistrust, power politics, and regional tensions. But the biggest news of the day: President Donald Trump warns India of higher tariffs over Russian oil imports, praising Prime Minister Modi while signaling renewed trade pressure. All that and more, global flashpoints, power plays, and the stories that matter are coming up in this edition of Namaste World. US President Donald Trump has issued a fresh warning to India over its continued purchase of Russian oil, saying Washington could quickly raise tariffs beyond the current high levels if New Delhi does not help address the issue. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, President Trump praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling him a very good man and a good guy, but added that Modi knew he was not happy about India's oil trade with Russia. I quote, "It was important to make me happy. They do trade and we can raise tariffs on them very quickly," unquote. The remarks came months after US doubled tariffs on many Indian imports to 50% in August last year, a move widely seen as pressure on India to curb buying discounted Russian crude oil, which Washington says helped fund Moscow's war machine in Ukraine. Russia remains India's largest oil supplier, despite the ongoing tensions. These latest comments risk adding new strains to India-US diplomatic ties, even as the two leaders have described their relationship as special in the past. Oil has always followed power, and now power has followed oil straight into Caracas. After the capture of Nicolás Maduro, President Donald Trump made his priorities clear: not about democracy, but energy control. With Venezuela's vast reserves in play, sanctions shifting, and global markets watching, is this the opening move in a new oil-driven geopolitical order? Here is a report by Rudrashish Kanjilal.
The oil companies are going to go in, they're going to spend money, we're going to take back the oil that...
Oil has always followed power, and power has just followed oil straight into Caracas. On January 3rd, the United States captured Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro. Within hours, US President Donald Trump made the real announcement: not about democracy, not about elections, but about oil. Trump said Washington would take control of Venezuela's oil sector, that American oil giants would pour billions of dollars, that Venezuela's broken oil infrastructure would be fixed, and that US companies would start making money fast. What Trump did not say is just as important. Venezuela's oil industry is not broken overnight. It is crippled by years of sanctions, economic collapse, and neglect. Fixing it will take years, not months. And so far, American oil companies have said nothing about committing to the scale of investment. Here's the hard reality. Venezuela holds the largest oil reserves on earth, over 300 million barrels, more than Saudi Arabia, nearly 1/5 of the world's proven reserves. Yet today, Venezuela produces barely 1 million barrels a day. Global production is over 100 million barrels a day. That's not a typo. A country drowning in oil is producing almost nothing. US sanctions, a shattered economy, and oil infrastructure that has been allowed to rot. This is exactly why markets are not panicking. Despite Maduro's capture, despite US tankers seizing Venezuelan oil, global oil prices have barely moved. The market is already well supplied. Demand is soft, and Venezuela's output is too small to shock prices for now. But the long game is different.
But we're going to be rebuilding, and we're not spending money. The oil companies are going to go in, they're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend. So it's going to be a very important. This is a very big evening that took place last night. We have to be surrounded by safe, secure countries.
If the US succeeds in controlling Venezuela's oil industry, more Venezuelan crude will hit global markets. That means more supply, and over time, downward pressure on oil prices. Not tomorrow, not next month, but in the years ahead, if billions are invested and infrastructure is rebuilt, Trump himself admitted it. This is not regime change for ideals. This is regime change for energy dominance. So where does India stand? In the short term, largely untouched. Indian refiners do not import Venezuelan crude right now, and with oil prices unlikely to spike, India is shielded from immediate pain. That matters. Because India is the world's third largest oil consumer, and it imports over 88% of its crude. But there is a potential upside if Washington eases sanctions. If Venezuela's oil sector is opened up again, India could re-enter the game. Before US sanctions in 2019, Venezuela was India's fifth largest oil supplier. Indian refiners imported nearly 16 million tons of Venezuelan crude in a single year. Reliance Industries was a major buyer. ONGC Videsh invested heavily on the ground. Today, over $500 million in ONGC dividends are stuck in Venezuela, frozen by sanctions. New Delhi is watching closely. A sanctions-free Venezuela could mean cheaper oil, recovered investments, and renewed Indian presence in Latin America's energy sector. But there's a catch. Any foreign company operating in Venezuela needs US approval, access to dollars, access to banks, access to markets. This is the so-called Chevron model, where Washington controls who pumps, who sells, and who gets paid. Even if Venezuela has the oil, the United States controls the tap. Maduro's capture is not the end of the story. It is the opening chapter of a much bigger energy battle. A battle over reserves, over sanctions, over who controls the future flow of oil. In geopolitics, oil doesn't just fuel economies, it decides power, and right now, Venezuela's oil has become America's newest lever. With Rajashish Kanjalal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Pakistan has added a new weapon to its aerial strike arsenal with the claimed successful test of the Taimoor air-launched cruise missile, a system Islamabad says boasts precision strike capability amid rising regional tensions and parallel Indian missile trials. But with question over accuracy and impact, does Taimoor truly alter South Asia's military balance? Here is a report by Farhan Khan.
Pakistan has just added another weapon to its aerial strike arsenal. The Pakistan Air Force has claimed that it successfully flight tested the Taimoor air-launched cruise missile, a system Islamabad says significantly boosts its conventional military capability. The test was confirmed by Pakistan's military media wing, the Inter-Services Public Relations, which described it as a major step forward for the country's defense industry. However, images on social media show that Taimoor missed the target. So, what exactly is the Taimoor missile and how effective is it? At its core, Taimoor is a long-range air-launched cruise missile with a reported reach of up to 600 kilometers. That means it can be fired from a combat aircraft well outside hostile airspace, allowing the launching aircraft to stay relatively safe while still hitting distant targets. The missile is designed to strike both land and sea targets, carrying a conventional warhead. Pakistan says the system is meant for precision strikes rather than nuclear delivery, reinforcing its conventional deterrence posture rather than strategic escalation. One of Taimoor's key features is how it flies. According to ISPR, the missile travels at very low altitudes, skimming close to the ground or sea. This low-level flight profile is crucial because it helps the missile evade enemy radar, air defenses, and missile interception systems, making it harder to detect and shoot down. Taimoor is also said to be equipped with an advanced navigation and guidance system which allows it to maintain accuracy over long distances. While Pakistan has not released detailed technical data, such systems typically rely on a mix of satellite navigation and terrain matching technology to improve precision. From a strategic standpoint, the test comes at a sensitive moment. India has recently carried out a series of high-profile missile trials of its own, including tests of the Akash air defense system, the nuclear-capable K-4 submarine-launched ballistic missile, the Pinaka long-range guided rockets, and Pralay ballistic missiles. Against that backdrop, Islamabad's timing appears deliberate, signaling that it is keeping pace in the regional military balance. Pakistan's leadership framed the test as a stabilizing move rather than an aggressive one. President Asif Ali Zardari said the missile strengthens national defense and supports Pakistan's responsible defense policy. Whether Taimoor truly shifts the regional balance remains to be seen, but its successful test sends a clear message. Pakistan is investing heavily in precision strike capabilities and wants its rivals to take notice. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
After nearly 3 decades, India and Bangladesh have reopened one of the South Asia's most contentious water agreement, reviving old mistrust around the Ganga during the driest, most politically sensitive seasons. With anti-India sentiment rising in Dhaka and climate pressures intensifying upstream, can the renewal of Ganga Water Sharing Treaty prevent water from becoming the next major diplomatic rupture? Here is a report by Rudrashish Kanjilal.
After nearly 3 decades, one of South Asia's most sensitive water agreements is back on the table. India and Bangladesh have formally begun the process of renewing the Ganga Water Sharing Treaty, a pact that has shaped relations, resentment, and regional politics since 1996. Joint teams are now measuring water flows during the most politically explosive period of the year, the dry season. But this is no routine technical exercise. It's about power, it's about trust, and it's about whether Bangladesh believes India has ever played fair. The measurements have already begun. Every 10 days until the end of May, Indian and Bangladeshi officials will record water levels in the Ganga in India and the Padma in Bangladesh. The locations are precise, near the Farakka Barrage in West Bengal and upstream of the Harding Bridge in Bangladesh. These are not symbolic points. They are the pressure valves of a treaty that has never truly settled the dispute it was meant to end. Indian engineers from the Central Water Commission are currently in Bangladesh. Bangladeshi technical teams are on Indian soil, and notably, Dhaka says it is giving special attention to the security of Indian officials. A quiet admission of growing anti-India sentiment on Bangladeshi streets. That alone tells you how changed this moment is. The Ganga Water Sharing Treaty was signed on December 12, 1996. Indian Prime Minister H.D. Devagowda, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Its purpose was simple on paper: end decades of friction triggered by India's Farakka Barrage, built in 1975 to divert water to the Hooghly River and keep Kolkata port alive. But simplicity ended there. From Bangladesh's perspective, the treaty never solved the core problem. It merely formalized inequality. The numbers explain why. Water sharing is calculated using historical flow data from 1949 to 1988. If flows at Farakka fall below 70,000 cusecs, India and Bangladesh split the water equally. Above that, India gets a fixed share list and Bangladesh receives the surplus. But here's the most critical flaw. There is no minimum guarantee. If flows drop below 50,000 cusecs, the treaty offers Bangladesh no enforceable right to water. Only consultations, only discussions, only diplomacy. In other words, when water is low, Bangladesh is expected to trust India's goodwill. Dhaka says that trust has been repeatedly betrayed. Bangladeshi experts alleged that during key dry season windows, especially from March 11 to May 10, water releases have fallen short of treaty terms. They accuse India of balancing the books by releasing extra water later, then claiming overall compliance. On paper, complaint. On the ground, devastating. These claims have hardened public opinion inside Bangladesh. They have turned a technical agreement into a political grievance. But India sees it differently. New Delhi points to established mechanisms like the Joint Rivers Commission, which met for the 86th time in Kolkata in March this year. India also stresses a reality Bangladesh often downplays: upstream constraints, climate variability, and growing domestic demand. Climate change, flooding, drought cycles, ecological threats to the Sundarbans. India hears something else: an attempt to renegotiate leverage, to extract more water without acknowledging upstream limits. With mistrust high, rhetoric sharper, and street sentiment in Dhaka increasingly hostile, this renewal is not starting from neutral ground. This is no longer just about cubic feet per second. It's about whether India and Bangladesh can prevent water from becoming the next fault line in an already fragile relationship. Because when rivers become weapons, diplomacy dries up fast. With Rudrashish Kanjilal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
As we wrap up today's show, here's a quick look at the top stories making waves around the world. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, seeking to reset strained ties amid Taiwan tensions, North Korea's concerns, and economic pressures. Overnight Russian airstrikes on Kiev killed 2 civilians, setting a medical facility ablaze and damaging homes and infrastructure across the surrounding region. The Louvre opening in Paris was delayed as museum staff met to decide whether to resume a strike over pay and working conditions. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Namaste World. From breakthrough in technology and business to political developments and natural disasters. Stay tuned as we bring you the latest updates, key developments, and more from New Delhi to New York. See you again tomorrow, same time, right here on Namaste World.